So today we're talking about how to leverage CRM data for powerful email marketing. And this was really inspired by uh, our press release last month, which announced our integration with Dealer Socket. And since then, we've had a lot of our clients, implement integrate our Orbee and Dealer Socket, and are trying out different strategies with it. And so that's why I brought on Brian Davis, our director of sales. He works really closely with the dealers to develop some of these strategies. So I thought, what
Absolutely.
better way to
Yeah,
start?
definitely want to talk about this important topic. There's a lot of reasons to do so, but thanks, Chris, for pulling all this together. And sorry about any technical difficulties anybody's having with joining in here. Always ironic when a tech company has a snafu, right?
Exactly. But that's all right. I'm excited. And something else I realized is just like I'm a marketer at a marketing software company. So I get excited about talking about these things. So let's
Definitely. I know
let's
you
get
do.
started. So quick agenda to preface everything. We're going to talk about the state of email marketing, um, how to send great emails with great data, segmentation and personalization, and then testing and measuring your email campaigns. So, Brian, is email marketing dead? You talk with dealers, like what do they say about email marketing?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's funny. I never really lead with, what do you do for email marketing? It always comes up, um, really because there are so many options for dealerships and any retailer or any business even to find audiences and reach audiences in the dealership world. And I've been doing technology and advertising marketing for dealerships for God, like 15 years now, something like that. So, um, you know, a lot of people have tried email marketing in certain ways, and you try something once, and if it doesn't work great, or you find something better, you just kind of forget about it, or maybe it goes to the back burner. I really don't think email marketing is dead. I do think that the way that we have approached email marketing in automotive um, is kind of old news, and there are better ways to do it that are going to give you the results that make you want to put in the effort, right, or make the expenditure. So it's not dead, but there's a term that I've grown quite fond of, which is when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So if you consider email marketing to be campaigns and blast to your whole CRM, if that's the only thing that you're really able to do with email marketing, then yeah, your results aren't really going to be all that exciting. So
Right.
no, I'm excited about sort of a resurgence of email marketing, especially with our customers here at Orbee and seeing what some of the advanced dealerships are doing. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I agree. Like emails is not dead. In fact, here's some stats. A lot of emails are sent every day. And
Wow.
the difference is what are these strategies behind these email sends? Um, I have a great source from HubSpot. We'll drop a link, or just Google HubSpot email marketing stats, and they pulled together sources from all over the internet because HubSpot's a big proponent of email marketing as well. And I pulled in one stat that's really important. The marketers who use segmented campaigns note as much as 760% increase in revenue. So there is a specific type of
Yeah.
email marketing strategy that you're really going to see ROI in. And we'll dive a little bit deeper into like segmented campaigns and what that
Right.
means.
We like Lyft, right? I mean, that's that's pretty solid. Of course, you get a lot of people look at this and say, "Ooh, our solution's gonna do this or give you 760% lift." But I think that study, from what you were telling me before, is the actual marketers using the tools that provide this better email marketing are self-reporting this. This isn't a product. This isn't Orbee saying our emails do this.
Right. Yeah. The HubSpot source, it has specific segments for like B2C, B2B, different industries as well. And so what I did also in this next slide is I pulled in some stats from Orbee's email stats. So I think this is the last 2 years. We've sent almost 7 million emails. We have a 31% open rate, and of those opens, a 13% click-through rate. And what I found from Constant Contact, I believe that's how you say it, they have a segment of automotive industry stats, and they're reporting around 20% open rate and 9 to 11% click-through rate. So anytime I could see, automotive industry specific stats, and to see that we're performing a little bit higher, it made me want to highlight this and talk about why that is. Why are we performing a little bit higher?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've only been at Orbee for 6 or 7 months now, and I've gotten a lot of information in that short period of time. But it seems like the real differentiator is the quality of the segmentation, right? I mean, that's kind of the basis of all of this, right? I mean, in your opinion?
Yeah. So these email stats you're seeing here, it's a mix of some blasts, but also segmented campaigns, automated emails. So that's why you'll see a higher open rate, because segmented equals personalization. That was on the agenda, but you're basically choosing a specific audience to send emails to. So it's a little more relevant, right timing, right message. They're more inclined to open it and click through it. But before we get to all that, it's important to understand, to do that, you need good data. That's how it all starts. So let me.
Sounds kind of expensive.
It could be.
Data is the new currency, right? I mean, in a dealership, I think most are pretty understanding that there's a lot of people trying to sell data, audience this or list that. And while there's value to a lot of these tools and certainly ROI in many cases, all of that's changing. So what I've noticed about Orbee in the time that I've been here is that we're talking about using data that you don't have to buy anywhere, and really the method of breaking it down and making it better is not really as expensive as it sounds, which is really cool. I like being a high value type of guy, especially with the times being the way they are right now, and nobody knows what's happening tomorrow. So yeah, that's awesome.
Right. So I want to talk about what kind of data, and specifically offline and online data sources. So how do you combine those to effectively segment out your audiences? But let's start with, what is offline data? And this is we consider these objects, right? So these are objects in your CRM. Brian, you want to touch on what is in a dealership CRM?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mentioned being around for a while here in dealership technology. And when people think about email marketing, and I send emails from my CRM, or, we have a marketing company that's in our DMS that's pulling data about our customers and sending it out. These systems have been around for a long time. That's not a bad thing necessarily. There's great data about, the Brian Davises and Chris Vasquez's of the world. But these data are based on objects. So the things that we as a business, as a dealership perhaps, decide are important. So, this person submitted a lead on a certain date. My sales team at the dealership has done certain things to try to get them in the store or to get them in the service drive. We've set appointments. They either showed or they didn't. We penciled a deal. We wrote an RO. We delivered a car. How much money did we make, and so on and so forth. And these are all categorical. They're all objects, right? They're not a consumer is doing something specific that deems it necessary to reach out to them. It's literally just what we've said is important. And then we're expecting that to really match up with what a consumer needs. I think a lot of times what object-based marketing and data points to is that we're really guessing. We're really making inferences. We do have some information, and it is really, really valuable. It is important, and it takes a long time to get and collect, but it's not the whole story, right?
Yeah. And in terms of the CRM, if you're looking at the data in there, you'll have your leads for people that haven't actually, scheduled an appointment or
Mhm.
bought a car. But there's a lot
Sure.
of that historical data that you can pull from that I think is really important. So I don't want to shun, object data, offline data. Like it
No.
is important, but we want to combine it with something called event data. So event data is the things that happen online where, on your website, on your trade-in tools, these are events that shoppers are taking, kind of subliminally telling you, they don't even realize it, but they're telling you through these events what they're really interested in.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, but how do we, it's great that we can get this information, but everybody always asks, right? So it's great that I know this stuff. I mean, this isn't a novelty. We've had Google Analytics since what 2005 or something, and we've had a lot of this data. But like, how do we use it? Is always the challenge, and how do
Mhm.
we like pull this stuff together? So I get people that are like really excited that we have it, and I'm not even completely sure all the time how exactly we're going to use it. But I think a big answer to that is integrating with not only the websites but also the source of all of that object-based data, which is the really cool piece of like how do we move this forward and make email better again, right?
Right. You want to combine all of those data sources. So this is just a quick example of what event data would look like on an individual basis. So this is a shopper profile. If you have a CDP, if you work with a CDP, this will be familiar to you. It's similar to a CRM's, customer object, just
Mhm.
different fields. These are event-based fields. So what's important is you take a shopper profile and you segment out these different activities that you see here. So looking at a type of truck, a new truck, like there's so many different uh, buckets you could put this one person in, and
Right.
that's what we want to do with combining multiple people into audiences, right? So I think what's the next
Well,
slide?
how do you like so you we have all this activity about what somebody has done, but um I think folks probably want to know like how do we figure out who that person is, right? I mean, there's tons of people selling this whole like figure out who's on your website and blast them with ads whether they ask to or not. And I personally like that kind of makes me a little bit queasy, but I think a lot of people find some value in that. But how do we kind of take this information about offline versus online and pull them together? Like what's the key there?
Great question. So we call this resolving an identity. So you have a lot of historical record if you're a dealer, in your CRM. And those people that are in your CRM, they've been on your website, they've been clicking around, generating event data.
Mm.
But right now, CRMs just don't have a way to connect those. So what Orbee does is as soon as Orbee gets its script on a dealership website, every visitor gets a specific ID. Even if they haven't submitted a form, we don't know who that email address is for that specific ID. We're mapping it together.
Right.
But when you send out an email through Orbee, everybody's going to get a unique link. So that way, when they click on that unique link, now we can tie all of the data associated to that email that's in your CRM to all of the data that we've captured on your website. So resolving identities is how you combine offline and online data.
So identity resolution is something that's pretty new to me. Coming from the dealer socket world, the CDK world. There are things that some CRMs can do where they can say, hey, well, this person's back on your website, but it kind of stops there, right? It's not there's not a lot of detail to it, and having sold these solutions to dealerships and knowing how they work, it's not identity resolution was just really wasn't that important. It's like, okay, let's just send emails to people and we'll get back enough, that we can stay fed. Um,
Mm.
So I think this is really, really huge. And from what you were showing in that profile, you mentioned the term CDP, which, yeah, we don't want to throw more acronyms out there, but we're talking about the customer's data, right? So we already have their PII in our CRM, right? We know who they are, we know where they live, if they've given us that information, and maybe it's just some very basic information about who they are because they're just a lead, they're not a customer. Um, and we're trying to make sure that we can mix the data that we might already have, having been in business for a long time, and now we're going to take that and through a system like Orbee, we're going to try as hard as we can to send messaging that makes sense to that consumer so that they'll engage with the messaging. And when they take action by clicking a link, what you were talking about with identity resolution,
Mm.
now we're able to combine the the signals that we're getting from the website, which is what are they doing now, with the objects that we had already of who are they, what do we know about them so far, right? So history mixes with present so that you can kind of create the future. If I'm, you know, I have to teach things to a 4 and an 8-year-old pretty often, so I try to like make it easy, and then I realize that wow, this is actually easier for me to understand. Um, so yeah, that's pretty it's pretty slick, but it is kind of daunting, right? I mean, it's not, it's not native language to
Right.
most people.
Right.
Um, Even outside of automotive, it's not something that everybody does well.
Hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of tools out there to try and accomplish exactly what this diagram is showing you. And if you want to take anything away from what we've said about data in the last couple minutes here, it's that you want to get to this point where you have all these data sources, uh, collecting the data about the customers you want to market to, and you want to centralize that somehow. So on a individual person level, that would be a CDP generating a shopper profile. But
Hmm.
as we'll get into some examples about marketing email marketing strategies that you've actually implemented with some clients, where they start off doing this and they take multiple shopper profiles and they fit into certain audiences, and these
Right.
audiences are based off of different rule sets, with a campaign objective in mind.
Hmm.
So let's.
Yeah, that's just to take a second here.
Mm.
Most dealerships that I've spoken with that do anything with marketing understand what an audience segment is, and in a lot of cases, it's if I'm in the Washington, D.C. market, my audience is the Washington, D.C. market
Mm.
for people that are looking for the things that I sell. But as time goes on, there are certain cases when we really want to be able to personalize messaging based on current events. And, simply saying, everybody who's given me their information, I want to give them this offer or tell them about this thing, just really isn't enough. And that's what we want to go down a path where we can really have um, audiences that apply to different things that are going on in the world. So inventory shortages, a lot of people were caught back on their heels because they're just used to having cars to sell, and now we got to kind of recreate the game. Well, what I think a lot of customers who I've discussed this with at Orbee enjoy is that if they're running our online events, they're understanding what people are looking for. We are identifying and resolving those identities through the email campaigns that we're sending. What we start to do is to build these buckets. I like to call segments buckets. We start building all of these buckets with people that meet certain criteria. We know who they are, right? And your CRM data helped us with that. Your dealer socket data, your e-lead data, Vin Solutions data, Drive Centric data, whatever, helped us figure out who they are. Now we know exactly what position they might be in, whether it's the vehicles they're actively looking at, the things that they've responded to, or when we take sort of a layer of data to understand affordability or understand life experiences, we can really build these things out to be pretty significant, right? It's really, really effective to be able to point at a bucket and say send my message to those people and those people alone because they meet that criteria.
Right, right, and that just leads to better results when you can take a subset of people and send them the right message rather than a blast, because then that's kind of how you lose a little bit of trust with your audience, because they feel like, they don't know you, they're sending you irrelevant things.
Right.
So yeah, you want to build out these segments.
Right.
So this next screen kind of is a screenshot of our CRM list builder. Did you want to show that live?
Yeah,
Should
I
I go
can try
ahead
to share my screen here, and hopefully it'll work out for you.
okay.
Um,
And let's talk about the strategy that you actually implemented, and then kind of go through, what it would look like using the tool first, and then the
yeah,
second.
yeah, I think we got to start at step one, Chris, which is like, right, we're talking about using CRM data
Mm,
to improve email marketing. And again, just to touch back on, you know, everybody has a CRM, right? You kind of have to, and it's got its limitations with regards to creating content, with regards to deliverability. So maybe the email address that the emails are coming from, you can't reply to it, or it's been around for so long and there's so much spam being sent that spam filters have said, no, 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 we don't want anything to do with that. And they blacklist the what's called a DNS, a domain name that email comes from, or it's just we get a lot of these things on a regular basis, and time has passed, and so um, those limitations of whether it's not a deliverable message or people aren't engaging with it because the content's not that good, because the creative's not great, or you're not able to really segment down to like what people are going to want messaging at a certain time. um, we found that it just makes a lot of sense to use a modern email platform to send your emails, not only because you're going to get that identity resolution when people engage with it, but because modern email platforms are able to send emails from your dealership website address, right? You're at Orbee.com versus at blah 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 dot such and such sender spot dot whatever, and
mm,
people aren't really gonna, they're much more willing to open an email that comes from a domain they recognize. So,
right.
but yeah, so to kind of get started, let me share my screen, Chris, and hopefully let me know if you can see the platform okay.
Yep, it's up.
All right. So, I mean, we are inside of the Orbee platform. This isn't intended to be an Orbee demo. This is a conversation about using email data to send better email marketing messages. So, what we have here is a customer who uses Dealer Socket and Orbee. And this is really, we kind of focused on Dealer Socket first because of some relationships we have. And what we wanted to find is a way that we could automate sending of messages and automate list building. Everybody's familiar with lists. And your marketing company, I need a list, a dump of your CRM so that I can start sending messages to people. Great, sure. So you send a big list of a whole bunch of tens of thousands of people's information to somebody else. And like all of that's changing because of privacy regulations. So we're trying to get away from sending lists to and from people, and trying to make it all API based and very secure and very safe for your customers' data. We're guilty too. Not everybody's there yet. We still do some list things, but with Dealer Socket customers right now today, I can pull data from the CRM without having access to it. So there's no login to Dealer Socket that I need in order to grab data from that object-based database in Dealer Socket. If I want to say, hey, I'm going to do a test list here, I'm literally in my list builder in my email platform inside of Orbee, and I can either upload a list, I can use a segment that's there, and we'll talk about that in a second. Or right now, I'm just going to grab some CRM data. So test, and I'm going to send a service email. And what I want to do here is find some criteria. You'll notice a little checkbox here, update automatically and can be reused. What we've done is developed a method with our automation that if you select, I want to send an email to everybody who hasn't had a service related event in the last 90 days, and check on them, make sure they're okay, and let them know about our new service schedule or whatever you want to do there. we can automatically add people to these lists, people who meet this criteria, and people who no longer meet the criteria can be taken off the list. So that's one thing with maintaining relevancy that we'll do here. So that's what that little update automatically box means. So I'm going to look at the filters like you had shown on the screen, and I'm going to find somebody whose most recent service event was created before the last 90 days. Okay. You can do more here. There's sort of these and statements, which makes things a little more streamlined and focused. I wanted to also say, somebody whose dealer socket profile was created a long time ago, right? So they're an existing customer from way back, and they haven't done business with me in a while. So they've been in dealer socket for more than 12 months. They haven't had a service event for at least 90 days. And I want to create this list, right? I didn't go into dealer socket. I didn't log in. I didn't have access to all of the information. I just dug out what I was looking for securely. And at this point, I don't have a list saved on my desktop. I don't have it in my email folders or anything. It's in a secure platform, has been sent in a secure manner. And so this list is actually literally creating itself behind the scenes. And what I'm going to be able to do then is use my, email templates, either ones that Orbee has created or ones that, your team or your agency has created. And I'm going to be able to actually apply, that list to a template and send that out really with a couple of clicks here. And I'm not going to really get into that. The key is we're really using this data, and now that list is completed, and I'm not going to go into who all these people are, because that's not stuff we really want to be able to see here. But you get the point, right? Like that data is very, very valuable. And if you're not doing email marketing using CRM data and really trying to leverage the existing data to do something better and more modern and effective, you're really not getting the most out of your assets. It's almost like having a 50-acre farm with a fence around it. Nobody's plowing the land, nobody's leasing it, nobody's doing anything. It's just sitting there as an asset, which is great, but that's not really putting any money in anybody's pocket. So that's kind of just a little bit about the list builder. Should I show anything else with that, Chris, or you feel like that's okay for now?
I think that's okay for the list builder. I think it's important to note it's a great tool just for testing and just seeing like, okay, I have a campaign idea in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Who would I want to target? How many people are actually in that list with that specific filter? Because like Brian said, if he actually clicked on it, once it says completed, it'll show you how many people are in there.
Right.
And then if it doesn't look like it's enough, or maybe it's too broad, you can go back in, tweak it again.
Right.
And I guess if we could stay on this screen and then talk about the segmented list as well. Because right now we just talked about offline data with your CRM, but you can also combine that with segments.
Well, there's, the segments are important, but the segments come from what Orbee is understanding that these either identified or unidentified browsers have done. So whether we know who you are or not, Orbee has a place for you in the database. And once we identify, we resolve your identity. So somebody has opened one of these emails, or somebody has filled out a form on your website, and we know a person that matches up with that browser, that actual place where they're looking at the website. That's when we kind of start pulling usable segments together. Now, you can use a segment to send audience information to like a Facebook or Google or Pinterest or TikTok or whatever, without knowing exactly who these people are. Because believe me when I tell you, Facebook and all these folks know who everybody is. But when it comes to emails, obviously we really got to have information about who the person is and what they're doing to make it effective. I'm actually going to pull up a different account that's been with us a little bit longer than the one I'm in, just to kind of show you a little bit better what the segmentation means. So when we're collecting data about customers, we get some analysis about where people live. Let me go to the last 30 days. And this is a great customer of ours, a Ford dealership with 2 stores. And what we're looking at here is we're looking at what people have done on the website. And again, these people over the last 30 days are anonymous and identified. And so we're putting people in these buckets, which is obviously the terminology I prefer. Who's a new visitor, who's looking at SUVs, who's a return visitor, and all of this is just based on how websites are created and run, and what signals we can get. And so what we want to try to do then is to say, hey, an example we recently did was a dealership that had a whole bunch of new trucks on the lot that they weren't able to sell, averaging like $70,000. I think they had 13 of them. They're like, look, we really need to move some of this metal to create some room for some new cars. It's a lot of frozen capital here on our floor plan. So help us get rid of some of these vehicles. And what we wound up doing was pulling a list from their CRM that had truck shoppers, right? People who had sent leads in the past on a truck or bought a truck in the past, so intenders, right? And then we also sent emails to people that fell into this particular dealership's truck segment. And it's not the one I'm looking at now, but it's all the same anyways, right? So
Mhm.
what we did is we looked at the segments through the email system that's integrated here in the platform. And we went down and said, hey, we want to find our truck shoppers and send them a special offer because we need to move some of this baker's dozen worth of trucks. Right? You
Right.
follow?
Right.
So right here, you can see Ford truck vehicle type content. This could be Nissan. This could be whatever. It could be just truck content across all intenders, used and new. And we see something here that says 645 shoppers. What this means is that out of all the people who have done the activities on the website that meet this criteria, we've actually identified 645 of them and matched that browsing information with their personal identifiable information, which would be like the email address, first name, last name, so on. And so we can actually just send an email right here, right now to these 645 people saying, hey, we appreciate your interest in our dealership. Wanted to let you know that there are 13 trucks right now that we were trying to get rid of, make some room for some new inventory. So we're willing to offer this. Or if it was that service segment I mentioned, talking about the new appointment tool and how that, is going to, make things different, or what our scheduling criteria looks like for the summer. Anything that's changing, anything that's relevant to those particular people, you can just go ahead and pop off an email here real quick to those folks, knowing that they actually have done these things on your website. And that's just really where that power of offline data, what's in the CRM, now we're going to identify who these people are. And once we have them back on our website and we know who they are, we know what they're doing, we can then leverage that data through email marketing to send those people relevant content. Email marketing doesn't have to be 50,000 emails at a time. Okay. But hopefully that's kind of what you wanted out of that example, Chris.
Works for me. I think it's exciting, and you're right. Like, it doesn't have to be 50,000 emails at a
No,
time.
it shouldn't be.
You shouldn't do that because then it's too broad. You risk unsubscribes, being marked spam, and like I said before, they lose trust in your brand. And
Yeah.
people, I asked my mom the other day because she's getting Spanish ads on her Hulu account, and she was like, "Why am I getting Spanish ads?" And I was like, "Well, you could tell them more about you, and they'll send you better ads." And she's like, "Where do I tell them?" So like, I feel like some people would actually prefer, they want personalized marketing rather than just guesses and nothing relevant. So
I mean, your last name is Vasquez.
yeah, so in her case, the data just needs to be updated a little bit better.
Well,
So
that's just it, right? I mean, you're targeting, if you're not eliminating people that shouldn't get the messaging, then you're wasting money. But with anything, the juice kind of has to be worth the squeeze. So if it's super duper cheap to blast messages to everybody that you can make an assumption about, sure, but your dollars are always well spent when there's a great deal of targeting involved, and that's nothing new. And it's nothing new with us. We're just showing you hopefully a more easy and effective way to do it. Yeah. So
right. But yeah, I think I want to wrap up here and just kind of summarize how to get started with using CRM data and sending out more email marketing campaigns. So,
Sure.
whoops, let me go here. So the first step, if you can do it, you need to combine your data sources so you have a better overall picture of people in a specific email list. You want to make sure everybody that you want in a specific list should be in that list,
Sure.
right? And then I guess as an example, when you're combining data sources, you're going to have hopefully one giant list, right? That's everybody that you can get your hands on, all the emails you can get your hands on.
Right.
Then you want to segment those audiences with all the data points that are associated to an email address in that master list. So,
Everything that you have at that point in time, anyways. Right.
yeah, everything that you had. So, you brought up the example of I want to target truck shoppers.
Hmm.
So, that would be an example of pulling people from that massive list, identifying who's interested in a truck, and segmenting them into a truck shopper audience. So that's when you have your audience, you can build out the email, design it. There's tons
Yeah.
of resources out there for designing great emails, but it's always good practice to design 2 or 3 different emails for specific campaigns. So you have different call to action buttons, different images, and if you can do it, different offers. And you're just measuring the results from those email sends. You're
Right.
looking at, okay, which subject line had better open rates, which images and buttons led to more click through rates, and even testing out different audiences, like which audience filters led to more, clicks. Those are all things you want to
Right.
uh, keep in mind as you're gonna, develop more email campaigns down the road.
Well, there's we've talked about a couple of things that may seem contradictory, and I wanted to clarify that we're obviously talking about moving into the future with sending better emails at the right time to the right people so that the engagement is there. But you do have to start somewhere. So as much as we hate to do it, yeah, your first emails are going to be a little bit more broad. So can we target them and try to make them better and send multiple versions? Yeah. But what we can also do, because we're a fully transparent platform, is if you had an awesome open rate and deliverability rate, but you had a poor click through rate by our standards, what we can do is go through and see who opened the email but didn't click. And we'll do drip campaigns to say, hey, you seemed interested in this truck email, but maybe there was nothing interesting for you once you got in there. So let's try to mix it up a little bit. So our account manager team is really good at developing drip campaigns. We've even got some clients that have over 100 locations that use their whole drip campaign follow-up process using our automation. So they're 1 day, 3 day, 5 day, 7 day, 10 day emails are all intelligent. And if somebody actually opens an email and clicks on something, we drop them out of the list. So there's all sorts of things that you can do downline, but you have to start somewhere. So what you're saying is, in order to get to the point in time when you are sending effective, relevant messages based on current events that are happening with your audience, you've really got to start with the data that you have in the CRM, the object based data, and use it for what it's worth. And it's hugely valuable, and move down this line and not be afraid to get out there and say, you know what, this one wasn't that great. Let's try it again a different way. I mean, it sounds like it's a process, right?
It's a process, and like you said, the automation and intelligent drip campaigns that comes after you've just gotten started, right? Because you
Yeah.
need metrics to kind of base uh, these future things off of. So, yeah, I hope this encourages some people to just try it out. Maybe build a couple lists. If you don't have, if you're not using Orbee, you don't have this integration. I'm sure all CRMs support exporting lists, setting filters.
Yeah.
So just play around with that. Come up with ideas like what is your dealership team wanting to focus on. Take that focus and then say, okay, let's see how many people I could build a list for with that focus in mind, and just send out an email. Like it is a process. Marketing. If anybody tries to tell you, they can guarantee perfect results the first time, they're lying to you, because marketing is constantly implementing, testing, adjusting. That's just the name of the game. So
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, Chris. And what I'll try to leave everybody with here is the notion that if you're doing it the same way you've always been doing it and expecting different results, it's not going to be fulfilling. So if you are going to either pay somebody to send emails or send them yourself, you want to make sure that you, the dealership, gain residual value from that effort. So if you send 50,000 emails and you get 1,000 clicks, what did those clicks give you? Right? You may have sold some cars, you may have, reconnected with some people, but maybe you didn't understand that in the future now you have the opportunity to see what those people are doing because you don't get browser identity resolution. So I really want to encourage people to get back into doing more email marketing and doing it in a strong way that pays them residually over time, so they don't have to keep going back and doing it over and over and over again without helping themselves get better. So that's what it's all about. I'm happy to talk to anybody who wants to discuss these things. Whether or not you end up using Orbee does not matter. I mean, it does, right? We all got, bills to pay and kids to feed. But if I can help you and help keep this industry thriving, give me a shout and let's schedule some time and let me know how I can be of service. If you like what we talked about here, then obviously we're up for that conversation as well.
yep. Like I said before, I'm a marketer at a marketing company, so I'm happy to talk about this stuff at any time. So thanks for tuning in,
Absolutely.
Brian. This was fun. This is the first time
Yeah,
Brian and I got on a live stream together. So yeah, we'll see.
I enjoyed it.
Us on
Thanks for
LinkedIn.
putting it together, Chris. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
no problem. Thanks,
Talk to you later.
everybody.
Bye.
Okay.